Recording in progress.
Hey. Okay, I guess we're ready to start our meeting. Welcome, everybody, here in the room as well as out on Zoom. Yeah, we are getting feedback. Getting feedback. So, I could just talk real loud. Pretty loud. You know.
Hey, Logan.
Yeah.
We are hearing our microphones from your microphone.
Oh. Okay, do you need me to turn off my audio then?
Yeah, if you mute your microphone, let's see what happens. Okay, so is your microphone mute? Well, I believe your microphone's muted now because there's no more echo. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, as I was saying, welcome everybody and anybody out on Zoom. Marcy is tied up today, so you get me, John Moody, again. Yeah. We've got an exciting program today. But first, Marcy has some comments that she'd like me to make. Oh, yeah. We are extremely shorthanded on the board. She wanted me to point out that we are without a vice president, we are without a secretary, and we are without some of the committees that have traditionally existed within this group. Acquisitions, cemeteries, history, and research. And Marcy herself is performing triple or quadruple duty as president, vice president, secretary, and research. So if people have any time at all, and she points out just a couple hours a month, please consider volunteering for one of these. If you have any questions about what these things mean, acquisitions, cemeteries, history, research, send us a note. Don't ask me, I don't know, but you can send us a note. All right, so item number 3, back in 22, back when COVID hit, actually, we stopped having meetings and we violated our bylaws. And a number of other things went on that caused us to not be in compliance with our bylaws. So in 2022, ending in about October of 2022, there was an effort to redo the bylaws in a way that we could survive this kind of thing without violating our own bylaws. And then that kind of sat for a while. And it was finally picked up again just this year. And we finished up a new set of bylaws that also are accomplishing some simplification and that sort of thing. So, but sort of right-sizing the bylaws for the group that now exists. So you will be receiving an email with the proposed new bylaws, and Marcy intends to call for a vote on that at our July meeting. So we'll get those out to you all. Olson receipts, Marcy wants me to say, because I have to do them, that you should get your Olson receipts in, please. Does anybody have any? If you have them, just give them to me at the end. Oh, okay, they're being collected at the back. Very good. We did turn in a whole bunch this year, so we're still kind of just inching up the pile now. And finally, our speaker today is Logan Knight with the Allen County Public Library Genealogical Center, which is outside of Fort Wayne, is my understanding. And Logan sent us a brief bio here. He's from Henderson, Kentucky. He graduated from Hanover College in 2010. So he's just a kid as far as I'm concerned. He got his master's from Indiana State, He's had several internships and has worked as a historical tour guide. That must be very interesting. He went on to serve as a special collections librarian for over 6 years at the Vigo County Public Library. Anybody know where Vigo is? You were the Indiana person, did you? And he has served in his current role as senior genealogy librarian at the Allen County Public Library since April of 23. I went and looked this up, and they had quite a slick website of their genealogy center, and with some nice videos you can check out. I guess, Logan, I think at this point I'm going to let you take over. So I'm going to go mute, right, guys?
All right. Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited to have you all here with me on this nice Thursday afternoon as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects. And that, of course, is getting ready to come to the Allen County Public Library and see the Genealogy Center. I have a PowerPoint. We're just going to kind of go through it. There will be, an explanation of the center, a bit of a history. You're going to see, how it's set up. My goal here today is to give you all the tools so that if you are able to visit or you want to visit, you can hit the ground running with a really great chance of success for, demolishing brick walls, what have you. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here. Okay. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. All right. So you want to visit the Genealogy Center, right? Okay, so the Genealogy Center is located right downtown in scenic Fort Wayne, Indiana. It is officially known as the Fred J. Reynolds Genealogy Center at the Allen County Public Library. It is, in fact, the nation's largest public genealogy center, collection, what have you. It is the second largest overhaul behind only the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah. But we're coming for you, Salt Lake. Right? The center has very extensive hours that mirror the rest of the library. So we are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 to 6 Fridays and Saturdays, and even noon to 5 on Sundays, absent major holidays. Right? Now, of course, downtown parking is an issue, but here at the center and the library, we have 3 lots that are available all around the building, as well as an underground parking garage. Right? For people that are using the library, you get 3 free hours of parking. And after that, it's $1 an hour and caps out at $7 a day. Right? I should note that we have instituted a new parking system, and you can review that on our website, which I would really recommend doing before you come, because it can be somewhat convoluted to do, just kind of walking into it, right? Okay. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a history of the center, and it starts with a man, right? The man the center's named after, Fred J. Reynolds, right? Fred, as you can see from his bust here, he started his career at the Allen County Public Library as the bookmobile driver before eventually moving on to what is generally known as special collections. Now, interestingly enough, Fred was actually not particularly interested in genealogy, but he saw an opportunity because he noted that genealogy seemed to be growing as an interest among people. Most libraries at the time wanted really nothing to do with genealogists. They stay all day. They ask all these complicated questions. All that kind of stuff, right? Where many saw a problem or something to be brushed away, Fred saw an opportunity, right? So he decided to grow the relatively small genealogy collection. So he started very small, right? He would go to estate sales and purchase materials for pennies on the dollar. As time went on, he would arrange for partnerships with other libraries. So, for example, the Newberry Library in Chicago. They had a great collection, but it was falling apart. The library paid for it to be rebound if we got a copy of everything, right? And of course, the more we got, the more people were interested and willing to come to the center, right? And by 1961, the center officially opened its doors, right? A snowball rolling downhill just tends to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the same thing is true with the center. The more things we got, the more people come. The more people who came, the more resources we're able to devote to the center, right? Then, of course, starting in the mid to late 90s, genealogy begins to move online. So the library started to acquire databases, digitized material, all that kind of good stuff, which led to the opening of the current center in 2006. Right? Now, over the past few years, genealogy as a hobby has grown immensely. A lot of this is due to COVID, with so many people shut in. But with the rise of digitization, genealogy was a hobby that people could do from the relative safety of their own homes in a way they couldn't have done even 10 years before, right? And so we're still seeing that momentum as more and more people become interested in genealogy and family history, right? And here at the center, our role here is to help people do what they can to make that one further step. Okay, so just kind of a general overview. The department is roughly 42,000 square feet, right? Which means it's about the size of a football field minus the end zones, or roughly 9 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Many people will ask, do you just have stuff on Indiana? And the answer is we are an international collection. We have material on all 50 states. We have material on just about every country in the world, one way or another. And the collection is constantly growing. Right? We're going to start off with our physical items, right? And that can be anything. That's usually, books, periodicals, microfilm, that kind of a thing. We have currently roughly 1.2 million physical items, right? And we add an average of at least 500 new items every month. And I can tell you just from personal experience with ordering, a lot of times it can be over 1,000 new items a month. So even if you were here, a year or so ago, we've added a ton of new materials that, depending on your family story, can be very useful to you. What do we collect? Right? That's another big question we always get. And the answer is we collect anything that can help someone trace their family story, right? So that, in our stacks, you'll find things like, county histories, probate records, church anniversaries, yearbooks, the history of particular Civil War military units, the meetings of the local, Tenderloin Sandwich fan club, anything and everything, right? Okay, So in many ways, I'm giving you a bit of a virtual tour here. The department is organized geographically to try to help people, find what they're looking for in a relatively straightforward way. So we're going to take a look at the East Room first, and this is called the East Room because it's East, right? Nothing too complicated there. The main attraction for this room is this is where you will find Indiana and states roughly east of Indiana, right? We have the world's second largest Indiana genealogy collection behind only the State Library in Indianapolis, right? This room will also feature General Americana, Colonial America, as well as military conflicts from colonial times through the Civil War, right? And just as an added bonus in there, the way we organize the states is that it's going to go the state overall first, followed by the counties alphabetically, followed by the bigger cities alphabetically, right? So because Fort Wayne is the second largest city in Indiana, there's a Fort Wayne section and an Allen County section. So sometimes, the devil's in the details, right? Now, one little asterisk I have to put by it. So I said these are states roughly east of Indiana. But we also include Illinois in this section because we kind of had to chop the Midwest up a little funky. So this is where you'll find Illinois. All right. To the west, you're going to find two big rooms. The first room is everyone's favorite. This is our family history room, right? And these are all of our family histories, right? This can be everything from like things that were professionally done 200 years ago to scrapbooks that we've had bound, anything and everything that might just give someone that little clue to break through their brick walls. We currently have over 70,000 family histories currently in our collection here, right? And we add an average of at least 100 a month. Just like with our other physical collections, we get donations weekly, really. So you just never know. And finally, somewhat unsurprisingly, the books are organized alphabetically, from Aaron to Zacchael, right? But of course, the trick is, in genealogy, spelling is optional, right? So always look a little to the left and a little to the right. All right, and then that, of course, brings us to the West Room, right? This room is a bit more of a hodgepodge than the other two. Its main attraction, though, is it hosts the world's largest city directory collection, right? We have city directories for all, the entire United States, as well as Canada. And in fact, it actually, the size of our directory collection supports a local economy of people who are paid by outside companies to do lookups in city directories. So that's always fun to see. And whether or not you've used city directories before for genealogy research, they list everyone who lived in a particular community at a certain time and will often have a street-by-street guide as well. So it's a really fantastic snapshot of a community in a particular time, and really great for filling in the bits between the census, right? This is also where you'll find 20th century military history, so the World Wars, Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan, things like that. This is also where we keep our oversized and super oversized volumes. And that's basically anything that cannot fit on the regular shelves, right? So this is where you'll see maps, gazettes, atlases, Sanborn fire insurance maps, mimeographed church records, things like that. Right? This area is also home to our international collections, right? The biggest of which is the world's second largest Canadian genealogy collection, behind only Canada's National Library in Ottawa. But we're coming for you, Ottawa, right? I should also note, too, that we have very extensive European collections, right? We have something on every country in Europe, but our real standouts are probably Great Britain, Ireland, Germany, followed closely by places like Poland and Italy, just whatever materials available. We have a relatively small but growing African and Latin American section. We're also the Western Hemisphere's largest depository for South African genealogy, right? So it really is an international collection, right? Also, this will feature states roughly west of Indiana, right? So, your California, Hawaii, Kansas, states like that. But also, with Illinois, we had to chop it up kind of funky. So Michigan, which is, honestly, like kind of west, kind of not of Indiana, is here in this far western section. All right. So, of course, one of the other important physical items that we have here is our very extensive microfilm collection, right? While microfilm is not used nearly as much as it once was, just because so many things have been digitized, there are many things that have not been digitized that are only available on microfilm, right? And we currently hold over 500,000 microfilm reels. Our microfilm reading center has over a dozen readers. We have 4 relatively new ones that, they're computerized, you can do a lot with them. But we've also maintained and kept some of the older ones that reach back to, the 70s and 80s if people are more comfortable using those, right? As I'll show a little bit later when we start talking about our digital assets, we actually have a separate microtext, microfilm catalog, whatever you want to call it, so you can look up individual microfilm reels that you might be interested in before coming here. All right, so that's kind of the overview of the physical stuff, right? But that's only really half of it. The online digitized material is just as, if not more important these days, right? So we're going to start with the Genealogy Center's catalog. Now, this catalog can be accessed anywhere, right? This is the place you go if you're interested in a particular subject, book, what have you. You can see in the little bar that says begin your search here. That's where you'll type and look for it, and it should give you a call number so you can go right to it or just see what kind of materials we have. I should say here at the center, in many ways, when you visit us, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. We actually have an entire cataloging department devoted exclusively to the center because of its unique needs. It's almost like one of those old, like Ford factories down there with conveyor belts and all kinds of things. And they do some really incredible cataloging work. And what I mean by that is, even if, like, for example, on a family history, if there's a family in the book that isn't mentioned in the title, but it's a big part of the book, they'll still put that in the subject line so you can find it in the research catalog, right? So if it's like the Smiths and allied families, and you're interested in, say, the Carvers who married into the Smiths, it'll have a thing that, lets you know Carver family is in that book, right? So it's a really, honestly, I tell folks all the time, check out the catalog first, especially before you come here, because that way you can get good at it, really. Now, this homepage is also where you'll find all of our databases, right? And those will be under the big red Our Resources button, right? Also, up at the top, you'll see a Genealogy Services tab. I always like to mention that because one of the things that here at the center we've prepared for people is something called Pathfinders. And basically what those are guides to particular subjects of what materials we have on those subjects, right? So to give you an idea, there's one for all 50 states, two for Indiana. We have them on, subjects like, Germans, Quakers, passenger lists, Jewish. It's those kinds of like subjects, and it'll give you a list of a representation of the materials that we have here. It won't be a list on like all the German stuff, for example, right? Because that would be thicker than a phone book. But it'll give you an idea of the kinds of things on those particular subjects and states that you can find here at the center. So I always recommend checking that out as well, right? Okay. Now, I always like to mention the probably the most overlooked resource here at the center is our digital collections available through our website. We currently have roughly 6 million different records available digitally, organized under the free databases. So you go to our resources and you'll see a thing that says free databases. These databases can be accessed anywhere in the world, right, that has an internet connection. And this is where you'll find the stuff that people have given us, that isn't copyrighted, and they've encouraged us to publish it online. So, you'll find family Bibles, you'll find photographs, you'll find funeral programs, all kinds of different things, right? And they're organized under their various subjects, right? So I always encourage people to explore that, especially before you come here, because once again, they're free databases and you can do it at home, and it's fairly straightforward. So for example, we've got an African American gateway, family Bible records, Indigenous Native American. One thing a lot of people will always ask, where's your surname files, where's your vertical files, all that kind of stuff, and the answer is we don't really have them in a traditional format, but anything that you're looking for like that, like family, stuff on like the Smith family or whatever that's not in our books or magazines, etc. This is the place to look. All right. So whenever somebody comes here, I would say a good 75% of the time, they're looking to utilize the center's very extremely large collection of unique genealogy databases. We currently have over 30, and it's something we're always looking to grow if the price is right and they'll allow us to get an institutional subscription, right? So of course, everybody these days starts with Ancestry.com, though I should note here at the center we have the expanded version, right, which includes international records. So, like German records, British records, things like that. So a lot of people can get really excited. I'm sure I don't have to tell you folks, genealogy databases can get really expensive really quick, right? So if you're coming to visit, it's a really awesome opportunity to try a lot of these different databases that you're not sure you might be interested in, or it's not worth the money. Here's a good chance to try something out, right? So, we have a lot of the basic ones like Fold 3, newspapers.com, newspaper archives. But in that 30, there's a lot of really unique special ones. My Heritage and Find My Past, for example. My Heritage we use a lot for relatively esoteric European research. Find My Past is British ancestry, basically, but increasingly has a bunch of North American records. So this is actually where I look for my Cincinnati German Catholic ancestors, because that's where all the Cincinnati Catholic records are online, is Find My Past. Depending on your own family story, we have some really, really unique databases. We have ones for like African American heritage, for example, is our collections of historic African American newspapers. Might very well give you different results than what you're seeing on like newspapers.com, Newspaper Archive. Archive Digital is another popular is probably in air quotes there, but it's very popular with Swedish people or Swedish Americans, because it's the leading repository of Swedish church records online, right? So it's a gold mine if you're Swedish and not so much if you're not, right? Our most recent database is one called Vintage Aerial, and that's a really unique one. But what it is a database full of old black and white aerial photos of the Midwest from roughly the 1950s to about the early 1980s. And what people mainly use it for is to see if they can get a black and white photo of Pop Pop's farm back in the 60s or something like that. Yeah. And of course, when talking about databases, we also have to talk about family search, right? Because these days, when you're doing research, Ancestry is your right hand, family search is your left. We are an affiliate library here, and we have, as much access as anyone outside of Salt Lake City proper. I always try to mention that to folks because, Family Search has a lot of really incredible records, but a lot of them you have to come to an affiliate to unlock. And that can often be difficult and a little frustrating because most affiliate libraries have really short hours, right? Alternate Tuesdays from, 2:30 to 3:30 or something. But here at the center, because we're open 70 plus hours a week, more than possible to search to your heart's content while you're here. Okay. So one of the really amazing things here at the center, and this is something we're very proud of, is our periodical source index, also known as PERSI, right? And what this is every month hundreds, if not thousands, of local history journals or genealogy journals come out all across the country, and indeed all across the world. They're often, really local, hyper-specific, based around like a county or an ethnic experience or a particular surname. And they're often chock full of incredibly useful information that, you may just not find elsewhere, right? The trick, of course, is you have to be a subscriber to the journal, or your library has to have it for you to know, to be able to flip through it and go through it, right? And is that worth it to you? Well, here at the center, we currently have roughly over 3,000 active genealogy, local history subscriptions, right, to magazines from all parts of the U.S., Canada, Australia, Europe, you name it. If we can get it, we do, right? That does not include the thousands of journals that ever since we started this program in roughly 1987 or so, that have since gone defunct, right? Maybe they only published, for 5 years, right? But maybe in that 5 years, there's that gold that can help you break through your brick wall. So with all of these journals, all of these articles in them, we actually have a team here that does nothing but index these articles all day long, right? We just recently passed roughly 3.2 million citations, right? And what it will, basically how we index it is either by surname or by location / Library of Congress subject heading, right? So if I type in Knight under surname, it'll bring up roughly, say, 1,000 plus. But I can narrow it down by location. I can narrow it down by journal, by year published, all that kind of stuff. Location, if I go to, say, Henderson County, Kentucky, where I'm from, there will be different subject headings for different articles, right? So, African Americans, the War of 1812, tax records, And the really cool thing about, while you can access the index anywhere, and in fact, many people will spend, a week or so just making lists of these articles they want to see when they come in, right? But if you're physically here, you can actually just go and take them off the shelf and read them and see if it's, what you want. Even more incredibly, our Percy team has just done probably the biggest update in its history, right? Which is any article that is out of copyright and has been digitized, they have now added a link to it, right? So you just would click on the link and it will take you to a free digitized copy of that article. Roughly 1 out of 5 Percy articles have been digitized and now have a link to them, and that you can access, while you're home, in your bunny slippers and cocoa, all that good stuff. And finally, we'll take a look at this handsome devil right here, right? One of the most important resources, in all seriousness, here at the center are the genealogy librarians, right? We have 7 genealogy librarians that are here to help you with your problems, genealogy-wise, anyway. We all have different expertises, different areas that we've done research in, all. And our goal is to help you, right? One thing that we do offer here are free 30-minute consultations on genealogy issues. It could be something like, I'm trying to find where my grandmother's buried, or I want to know what village in Germany my great-grandfather came from, or all that kind of stuff, right? And I should note, while, I would say our most successful consultations tend to be in person, we do also offer them by Zoom or by phone for people as well. And I should note, it is free, right? So you can't beat that. Also, I should note, too, the librarians are available to do tours through the department. We do ask you, request that, a reasonable amount of time ahead so we can prepare. But basically, you would kind of get like what we're doing today, only we would be walking around these 42,000 square feet. Okay, so a couple things to know before you come here, right? If you bring your laptop, so long as you are on our Wi-Fi and go through our website, you will have full access to all of our databases, just like you are on one of our computers, right? And the advantages to this, of course, is that a laptop is much more mobile. You can take it anywhere in the department that you want. Many people already kind of have their genealogy material set up on their computer, so if you don't want to print things off, you can just download it. If you have an Ancestry account, you can upload the documents right from your own laptop, all that kind of good stuff, right? That being said, if you do want to print, it's just 10 cents a page. Doesn't matter if it's black and white or color. Same price since 1976, because here at the center we believe in whipping inflation, right? While the machines do accept cash or card, they will not accept anything smaller than $1, and they do not accept change, right? So just to let everyone know ahead of time. We have 4 copier printers that are available throughout the department. They are all equipped with flash drive readers. So if you have a USB, you don't want to pay, the 10 cents a page, or you just don't want all that paperwork to take home with you, you can just scan it to your flash drive, and that's perfectly fine, and it's free, right? As far as rules about the Genealogy Center go, honestly, we're not too big on rules. You can bring anything with you for the most part. You can bring in your computer, tablet, scanner, pens, pencils, all that kind of stuff. Many people will even bring in their own, smaller handheld scanners as well. But one thing we absolutely do not allow is there is no food or drink allowed in the center. No, it doesn't matter if it's just water. That's a very strict rule. So, please don't do that. I should note too, while the department is huge, right, 42,000 square feet, the library is even bigger. It is roughly the size of a city block. It is the biggest library in the state of Indiana. So that being said, heating and cooling can be a bit of a challenge. So I do often recommend to folks, particularly if you're cold-blooded, it's usually a good idea to bring a sweater or a jacket just in case, right? Finally, wear comfy shoes. You may very well find yourself sprinting all around the department, so it's a great idea to just, be comfortable while you're doing it. Okay, so a couple of tips to make your visit here a success. One, the center does offer what we call a genealogy card. This will not allow you to check out materials here, I'm sorry to say, nor will it give you any database access. What it does, however, allow you to do is it will give you an account in our catalogs, and you can actually make lists of materials that you'd want to view while you're here, right? So if anyone's interested in that, please just, shoot us an email and with your name, email, and physical address, and we're more than happy to get you signed up for one of those. The center can be extremely overwhelming, particularly for first-time visitors, right? To be honest with you, I've seen people burst into tears before, just because they're so overwhelmed, right? So I always tell everyone, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time, right? And that's the best way to approach it. We just, our goal is to just, go a person at a time, a question at a time, and just, diligently work on that, and just try not to get too overwhelmed. Take a look at the pathfinders before you come, because once again, not everything we have on a particular subject, but it will give you an idea of the flavor of what we have to offer here, right? And when you do come, please get a map, right? It's very easy to get lost here. You will see librarians wandering around. We're more than happy to help direct and guide you, but it's always best to have a map, right? And that kind of brings me to my next tip, right? Which is the victory is in the preparation. If you want to have a successful trip to the center, then preparing ahead of time is a really great way to ensure that level of success, right? Often enough, I've run into folks, that, they'll get here and, they were either very overwhelmed or they didn't realize just the sheer size of the collection, that everything can kind of go like a million miles a minute, and they end up not getting anything accomplished because they didn't have a plan together, right? So just a word to the wise, right? And probably the most important thing, if you have questions, ask for help. Seriously, the genealogy librarians, our main role here is to help. You are not bothering us. I promise you they pay me just enough. So if you do have any questions, no matter what it is, please just come talk to us. We're more than happy to help. All right, so that's kind of my overview of the center and what we have to offer. But we still have some time left, so I think, why don't we turn it over to questions?
Here's Michael.
Let me.
How long should I ask questions? There's a room, yeah, they'll pick you up. Oh. I have a question about the genealogy card. When to create a list for materials for our visit, is it something that we request like the list ahead of time? And we tell you what day we'll be there? Do you pull materials ahead of time so they're ready for us? Or is it part of our planning, so when we arrive, we know what materials to go and get on our own?
That's an excellent question. So we don't pull materials ahead of time just because people need to have free access to them. So it's the latter. That it's kind of like you've got your list, you've got your call numbers, and so when you walk in, you know, you hit the ground running. Is the big appeal of the genealogy card.
That when we arrive, we go and get those materials on our own. Correct.
I'm sorry. What did you say, ma'am?
It's just for our own, a list for our own benefit, so that we have it when we arrive and we go and get the materials on our own, work with it. Okay.
Exactly.
You-
How are you funded? This has got to be wildly expensive.
Well, you're not wrong there. We're founded pretty much exclusively by the Allen County taxpayer. Property taxes is pretty much how it goes for libraries here in Indiana. The center is somewhat unusual for many reasons, but unlike the vast majority of special collections departments, we actually get a cut of the main source of funding that in most libraries is traditionally devoted to, you know, the main fiction, nonfiction section. But we get a much bigger cut of that. But you know, we do get donations from time to time. We do have, you know, friends of the Genealogy Center that occasionally, you know, do some fundraising, but the vast majority of it is simply local property taxes, and we're very fortunate.
Friend that has a box full of his ancestry stuff, and he wants to get rid of it. I was thinking about sending it to Utah, but I know he lived in Indiana for a while. Is he better off just sending that to you, and do you share it with Salt Lake, or what? How does that work?
It really depends on what exactly it is. Like if it's like a, you know, like his family history or something like that. You know, honestly, either place would probably be really great for it. I will say here at the center, we work with donors in terms of, you know, what they want us to do with it. You know, some people are very leery about having their material online, and so they request us not to post it. Others, you know, really want it out there. We still do have a program where, you know, if someone submits, you know, a family history to us and wants it bound, we will actually pay for a bound copy of their family history for them. You know, in many respects these days, the issue is we really are drinking from a fire hose when it comes to collections. Many libraries, their special collections departments may be going the way of the dodo. A lot of genealogy societies have had trouble since post-COVID. And of course, you know, the old standard, you know, I'm not going to be around much longer, and my kids don't want all this stuff. Can you take it? So everything's a little bit different, but by and large, we're more than willing to accept, you know, anything that can help someone trace their family story. But as far as like sending it to us versus Salt Lake, honestly, either one is a really fantastic option. We do have partnerships with Family Search, but it's not exactly a one-to-one. It just kind of depends.
Do you handle old family photos?
Photos, for the most part, what we offer is we'll digitize them for people if we're allowed to put them on our website, and we will return the originals.
Is there a way, if you're not a member of the library, if you don't live there, to then access things online? Card or something, or, you know?
So yes and no. Anything that we, that's on like our free databases or has like the link, like I was talking about with Percy, that stuff you don't have to have a library card or anything like that. But as far as like, say databases like Ancestry or our physical materials or anything like that, to be blunt, and a library card doesn't help you because the databases require you to be physically in the building to use them. That's part of our contract. And of course, like pretty much all special collections, none of our materials check out. We don't participate in interlibrary loan. So most of the genealogy center stuff, it wouldn't matter if you lived down the street. You'd still have to come in.
For your Percy index, for most of the items that are indexed, you said that there's hyperlinks to the actual article. Is that true for most of what's in the index?
No, not most of them. Roughly 1 out of 5 will have a link, but 4 out of 5 will not because they're still in copyright, and therefore we can't. I should say though, you are able to order articles from us. It is $7.50 plus 20 cents a page, so not that bad with the price of gas. I should note that does not extend to European journals, as their copyright law is different than American law, and they're actually pretty unhappy that Percy exists in the first place. So that any European journal, you do have to be physically here.
That index, though, can you at least help us know how to get to the actual articles? I always get frustrated with indexes where I can find that some information I'm looking for exists. The index tells me this information exists, and then nothing. I know the information exists. I know nothing about how to get the information. And that's what I want to know. Is it so? How do I get the information?
Well, so what the index will tell you, in addition to the article title, it will give you the journal, volume, issue number, and most importantly, it'll give you the call number. So you can go and actually get it right off the shelf here. Because all of the articles that are indexed in Percy are ones that we physically have in our collection. So it's really just a question of writing down the volume, issue, and call number, and then just going to whatever part of the department has it, and then just taking a look.
Is physically in your center, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions, folks?
What kind of accommodations are near the library?
There are many. We're downtown Fort Wayne, so there's at least 4 to 5 different hotels, all within a block or two of the library. So, a Hilton, a Marriott, uh, things like that. There's even a bed and breakfast not too far if that's something you're interested in. Uh, and of course, I will note as well, sometimes people prefer to stay a bit further out because it will be a little bit cheaper. But that really is a individual decision. So there, many folks though tend to prefer to stay at the downtown hotels because then you can just walk here, walk to all the restaurants, all that. Maybe take in a baseball game at the field that's right next to the library.
So I assume if you can't drink water, there's gotta be areas that you can go get water or a snack or bring a snack and water or something. Is that true? Like lockers or?
So we don't have lockers. You can eat or drink pretty much anywhere else in the library. There are tables directly outside the center. We have vending machines downstairs, and of course you've got assorted restaurants and whatnot all around the library as well. You're just not allowed to eat or drink in the center. But you just have to go a little bit out, go to the drinking fountain or what have you, and then you're perfectly fine.
Referring to that as the center, is it like meeting rooms within the building, or is it the building that's the football size building?
Yes, it's the genealogy center within the library.
Yes, yes. At the end of the day, the center is a department in the library, so we share it with the rest of the library. So we're up here, but we're right next to the DVDs and the Blu-rays and the CDs. Kids department downstairs, an art gallery. There's a theater in the basement. So it's an interesting mix of a relatively traditional, albeit very large library, along with the center. So, but yeah, we're smack dab in the heart of it.
Set up how do we contact you and when's the best time to come to Fort Wayne?
Well, please feel free to shoot us an email. I left my individual email with your guys' president, and also you can just send it to the regular email, which is just genealogy@acpl.info. As far as the best time to visit Fort Wayne, it really depends on what experience you're looking for. So, for example, like right now, of course, it's summer, which the weather's great, but that means that there will be a lot of groups and a lot of people here. So you'll be competing, so to speak, for materials and consultations and things like that. I will say usually post October to about March, that's very much our off season. It can very much be a bit of a ghost town in January or February, but of course also the reason for that is that the weather ain't great. So it really just depends, honestly.
Yeah, I guess we're.
Well, thank you so much for having me, folks. I really appreciate it. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a line.
Okay, how do I get mine on the screen? I'll put it on. Okay. So the local entertainment this time. How many of you have Canadian ancestors? So this will be of interest to only a few of you. The rest of you can watch or whatever. So in Canada, they had some relatively strict rules about who could be Canadian, that were really stricter than you'd find in a lot of other countries. And as a result, they had some lawsuits. And they, in a recent Ontario lawsuit, ruled that what they'd been doing was unconstitutional for their constitution, obviously. And so last December, they finally put in force a new Citizenship Act. It's variously called C-29 or C-3, depending on whether the king had blessed it or whether it's describing the changes or the actual text. It's all kind of confusing to the Americans. But anyway, it came into force. And if, as I said, if you have a Canadian ancestor, as a result of these rule changes, you may already be a Canadian citizen. But, and that would be, as defined. You'd be defined as one, but you have to prove it. And that's what the next bullet is about. To exercise your rights, you're going to have to get a certificate from the government. So my brothers and I and my cousin are all off spending way too much time, right, Courtney, on this topic. But it's a great, fun new project. To receive it, you have to prove your connection. So I'm going to flip to the next page. So let's start with a little Canadian citizenship history. They were all British subjects up until a surprisingly late date. So you learn a little bit when you do this kind of thing. It wasn't until January 1st of 1947, on the Act of 1946, that they actually defined what a Canadian citizen was, and when the concept of a Canadian citizen actually was created. Up until then, they were just subjects of the British Crown. And the key provisions were anyone who was a British subject and born and resident in Canada before that date became a citizen. A person born outside Canada before that date could become a Canadian citizen only if his or her father, it was one of the faux pas the court found, father was living and was made a Canadian citizen on that date. Or if you were a person born outside Canada after January 1st, and this thing's blocking my screen, so now I can't read it. I'll have to go read up here. Now it's blocking it there too. What's this crap in my corner here? There it is. I can't read my own writing. Yeah, it's got these weird icons. Yeah.
What is
The little icon box is right on top of what I don't remember what I wrote. It's on the laptop and the screen, yeah.
Yeah, the reason it's on the screen is
Well, that makes sense, yeah. It is? Why it happened? Thank you. Just be ready if it comes back. Anyway, a person born outside Canada after January 1 of 47 was a Canadian citizen only if his or her father was a citizen at the time of the person's birth. Again, that same faux pas. And there was a 1 generation limit. So if you were born outside Canada and let's say your father was born outside of Canada, sorry, you don't count. That was also considered a faux pas by the court. That act, the 1946 Act, was revised several times between then and now. Some of them, mostly they were fixing faux pas along the way. There was another one like in the 70s that actually got more draconian relative to residency rules. So they threw all of that out in this new version in 2025. The term Lost Canadians Act in the middle bullet there, you'll hear that as a name for this thing. So they're treating all these people who, like for me, my great-grandparents were from Canada. And so I have Canadian cousins. My mom had Canadian first cousins, and aunts and uncles. But she was a lost Canadian, as was my grandfather, as am I. So critical to today's discussion, this act establishes that citizenship flows from the first generation, beyond the first generation born outside. So it would have been, instead of just being my grandfather, it's his daughter, my mother, it's me, it's my kids. And there is in the law, they have a catch that catches anybody who's born after basically December of 25. At that point, you have to start showing some intent to actually be a Canadian. But until then, you don't have to. You don't have to go there. You don't have to be there. You don't have to swear an oath. You don't have to do anything. But the people who are born later, there has to be, I think, 3 years cumulative, not running, of time spent by the parents in Canada. Okay, there's a growing backlog of applications. So, we've been very excited about getting it done, but it's very confusing. Oh, there it comes back. Good. Yeah. 3 million Americans, they think, qualify for Canadian citizenship under this new law. Apparently, there are 82,000 applications awaiting approval. And the timing for those approvals is stretching now to 15 months. So you've got this department that processed this stuff before, and they've just been deluged, I guess. And they published something that suggested that only, in my mind, that those kind of numbers, only 4,100 people have already received certificates. But it does take a bit of work to put together your application. So let's go there. For this page, this is very recent, June 15th. You can go out and see comments in the press that people who had been granted, some of those 4,100 people who had been granted certificates, they were getting letters saying, oops, not so fast. Please return it. And now, just yesterday, I read that some of those now have been reissued. But what was going on, apparently, was that people were using, let's say, Ancestry. And they would go find something on Ancestry that said they were related to somebody. And they would use that and submit that document. That doesn't count. You have to submit official, wherever you were born, you get your birth certificate from that county or state. You need that kind of level of authority behind all the documents that form your chain to your Canadian ancestor anchor. So you got to say, got to have and in Canada, that can be interesting, especially if you're from Quebec, because they had, records were all done by the clergy. Original authority is really the key that you end up having to spend a lot of time on, as opposed to just finding it out there. If it was just finding it, we'd have been done long ago. Appropriate authority, see, the original replaced appropriate in their language. Appropriate was, people could pull something from a genealogy site, and well, it looked right. But in this day and age with AI, you can pretty easily fake something. And I think that's what they've come to realize, and they want to have something they know a third party has attested to the fact that whatever you have is really true and a true reflection of whatever is in the original data. So for instance, BANQ, the bank, something or other of Quebec, I think National of Quebec, is the original authority. And if you're familiar with the Drouins or Drouin, that, although it seems very, very official to me, isn't. It's in fact just a repository of genealogical data. The final note, also the IRCC, which is the department in Canada that judges these things that you send your application to, and they will approve it or not, are now requiring explicit proof of parentage and Canadian citizenship for every generation in the chain. Now, to me, that was sort of obvious, but yet it was commented on in some articles. So maybe some people were even cheating on that piece of it and not really connecting themselves fully, maybe even after they crossed the border into the US. Our remaining questions that my brothers and my cousin and I, could we do things with photocopies? So we've been doing a lot of work with AI, and we have battling AIs. And I use Copilot, and Copilot's much more liberal about everything. And one of the brothers is using Claude, and he is very a real stickler for the details. So it's fun to watch them battle. We've also had discussions with lawyers. And I don't know if the lawyer one, I think it's in here, but the pages might have gotten out. I don't know. But the lawyers say, we have a very strong case. Just pay us some money. And it's a lot of money they want. So we aren't doing that. So one of the questions was, can you use color photocopies or not? So my AI said, yes, you can. And Claude said, yes, you can. And I asked my guy, I said, so would it not be safer to submit the actual document? Yes, it would. This is the way AI works. You have to always keep asking different questions. So he says, yes, absolutely, it would be much better. And they'll return it to you. Okay, well, why wouldn't I just send in the original then? Not have to worry about it. And then we have, there's 15 living descendants of my grandfather who would qualify to have dementia. So I'm kind of saying, why would we put them through this? So maybe it's 13. And then just last night, I was reading and quizzing my AI friend about the fact the AI made a comment about minors. And yesterday, we have 2 minors in this group. And yesterday, one of them turned 18. So we only had 1 left. And I said, so you're sort of implying that if this one minor has to go through more hoops and suddenly gets rejected, and they reject the entire batch based on any one error in any one application, maybe we shouldn't do that person. Nope, you shouldn't do that person. Wait, it'll be really easy later when her mother has a certificate. It's just a couple of documents put together and you're done. So how you want to do this? Do each of us brothers want to do our own family and my cousin do her family? Or do we want to do it all as one? They still want us to do it all as one. If nothing else, it's nicer for the people who have to judge it. They only have to go through it once. It reduces their workload. So maybe they'll be happy with us and say yes. How to proceed? They have a website. I can, if anybody's really actually interested in this, I can send this to you or whatever, because we did not get this printed. But you go to the IRCC's page, and they've got a pretty good system for helping you understand what to do, and whether or not you have to do it on paper or if you can do it online. And pretty much you'll have to do it on paper is my guess. Then you have to start filling out the forms, and the forms are awful. So they're only designed for 3 generations: the applicant's parents, and the applicant's grandparents. So we got great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents to cover. What do you do? So AI says, oh, just create some supplemental pages. Okay, fine. There's a lot of, therefore, questions that don't make sense. How do we answer those? And how do I fake it when the document assumes that within those 3 generations, someone's a Canadian? And then as soon as you say this person's not a Canadian, it says skip to end. Oh, so you can't skip to end. You've got to still have the document show this. So you have to go and fake it all out. And so it would be nice if they came out with a new form, but we don't know if they will. But I do think they came out with a new form as a result of this news article that I mentioned. I think they've come out and changed their language about that. So then you download those forms I was talking about and struggle to fill them out. Get AI. If you can't afford the lawyer, start working with some AI stuff. You'll get some much better results. And even try different AIs and paid AIs so that they're smarter and not just give you the dumb unpaid AI answer. You'll need to order certified long form vital records. Long form meaning it shows your parents. And there's the BANQ, Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec. Assemble and mail your application, checklists, Photographs have got to be just right. If they aren't, you're rejected. You got to write something. Something's got to be written on the back. I don't know what it is yet, but something's got to be written on the back. If you don't do that, you're rejected. The whole pile is rejected. So it's going to turn into a real effort to make sure that we've done every single one of these right before we put it in the envelope. And that's it. Because it's the same. You ought to talk to my wife. Because it's cool. Because it's cool, you see. Well, no. I mean, like my brother, he's 6 years younger, so he's just a kid. He actually dreams of buying a place out in, he wants to retire and be in Canada for the summer and like Mexico for the winter. Well, I'm here and in Detroit. What am I going to do? I don't know, but it's cool. And if we ever travel overseas and the terrorists get us, she pulls out an American passport and they kill her. And I pull out a Canadian passport and they let me go. The Canadian passport actually is accepted in more places than the American without the visa.
So is that dual citizenship? Is that
Yes,
what
it'd be officially dual citizens then, yeah. Yeah. Yes, the U.S. does not have rules. Somebody has implemented, some fabulous politician has tried to put into place now a bill to outlaw dual citizenship, but it won't work.
Citizen,
Yes,
where your oath to forsake all. Or, whatever.
right.
But
Well,
you already got
and you see, that's part of what was some of what the new Canadian law is addressing. Under Canadian law, you have to specifically, in a very specific way, renounce your Canadian citizenship. So my great grandparents, one of them came over. He's got a Bay City census record, and he wasn't even there. His wife answered and said he was naturalized. Meanwhile, he had already moved over to Wisconsin to another logging center, and there he said he had his papers of intent and whether or not either one of them answered right, we don't know. We can't find any record of him naturalizing. She did, but not until the 40s, probably because she needed Social Security or something. I don't know. Yeah.
that's what.
They don't. There's nothing in this about DNA. It's all paper. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting, but
You have tested adopting or something, and you have Canadian ethnicity.
if you
Paper trail.
yeah, you have to get the paper trail. It's all a paper trail. It's just a few limited number of forms that they need for the paper trail. It's birth certificates. It's marriage certificates.
Generations back of Michigan birth certificates and marriage certificates did you have to get?
Well, I didn't have to get anything from Michigan. Yeah, because my family, the Canadian part of my family came through here, but they were only here from like 1890 to 1900.
Starting to do this and like
Oh,
access how far so many generations back
yes.
to
To get a birth certificate?
to get
Yeah. Yes, we did run into some of that. And sometimes you just have to lie. I mean, yeah, a lot of them have these rules now. And so like, I said to my brother, hurry up and get mom's because, we don't know how long she'll be around. So,
it's more than what they had anticipated at the beginning. So not just Canada, but other states in the United States are being overwhelmed by people requesting records.
well, yeah. See,
Places are tightening up.
and that's where we already had a lot of this stuff already done. And so translating from the Drouin records over to this BANQ, the hardest part was figuring anything out, how to do anything in BANQ. There's a Genealogical Society of Quebec that published something, and I found that, and it said, just do this. Oh, yeah, okay, that was easy. But until you find that, you're just absolutely lost in their system. So, yes.
Yes, they're working on that.
How long has this been bothering you? I think it was last spring. I think it was like Marchish maybe. That I don't know. I don't remember even how it came up, but yeah.
It went into effect like in February that you like really start submitting applications.
So so we started, we know all the all the people involved and all that. And we have the advantage that in 1957 or 51, somebody had a priest sign, transcribe and sign attesting that this was a true copy of what was in, and that was their marriage record. Yes. But we had to go off to this BANQ and request a certified copy or a certification of her birth certificate. And what's really interesting, it's both great grandparents, and then the AIs and the lawyers all agree you should go through her. Okay, so she went through some name changes, obviously getting married, but also she had a Scottish surname, and the French Canadians just cannot handle Scottish surnames. So it's spelled every which way in any sort of document, but her first name stays the same. And so AI told me again repeatedly, as long as the first name stays the same, these people all understand that they don't understand Scottish names. So when they see McCain and McKay and Mackay and this and that they know that these are all natural variations of the same name. Meanwhile, he is Lapointe, and he's Lapointe. But he was born, how they will have a name and then they'll call them something else, right? So he was Auguste, but he was called Philippe. And so he's born and I had pulled all this nice census data to show how his name progressed from Auguste to Philippe, and his marriage certificate, it says Auguste Philippe. To me, he is like the lockdown obvious person to do. So I was arguing with AI last night, but I gave up because AI always wins. And they convinced me, no, she is the way to go. The lawyer said the same thing. I was like, okay, fine.
With that situation of names being written multiple ways of anybody actually being approved.
No, I don't know anybody's ever been approved.
That's what's holding me up actually, is that name written different ways than different certificates. In my experience with the IRCC, before all of this, just helping people get visas,
yeah,
they will deny you for anything they can find to deny you on.
Well, we're going to have both of them in there, so. Yeah.
I submitted to them.
Yeah. Did the first name change?
Middle name is different on different documents.
Yeah.
And put together a perfect enough story to convince them that this is really the same person everywhere.
Yeah. And
Does it show the parents are the same?
hopefully.
It's
Well,
from the birth to the next birth of her child.
Yeah.
Changes.
Yeah.
So to choose to prove that parent.
And wherever there's a marriage related change of name, then you have to have a marriage certificate as well. Okay, so any other questions on that fun little topic? My latest little thing. Okay, well, if there's any other comments, how'd you like today's meeting? How'd you like that was actually far more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I told Courtney it was going to be really boring, but yeah.
That may be a better source for me than Salt City.
I was amazed. I did not have any idea they had anything that big there. And I thought the good question was, how do they fund it? And it's like those poor taxpayers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Library meeting. Going forward, that with this organization partnering with Otto.
Well, that is the family search training session, I believe, on the 11th, right? Isn't it? Yeah, it's at.
With that.
Yes, I think it is driven by the library, and we volunteered to help people experience family search. Well, if you ever need, you can just holler, I